Hi, welcome to my in-depth review of the EVGA GeForce RTX 3080 Ti for the Win 3 Ultra Hybrid Gaming. I got this video card because I am an EVGA Elite member, and so on its release date, I had an early access where I was able to very quickly get onto this web page that I'm showing you right now, and I was able to click on the auto notify box to enter myself into the EVGA queue. For those of you who don't know, EVGA only uses the queue system, so basically it's first come first serve, and the elite members gets a 24-hour earlier access. So it's good to be an elite member for the EVGA system, and it's pretty straightforward to sign up. You just go ahead and sign up the EVGA elite membership, as you'll find it on their website. I'm not going to show you the website, and you can either purchase an item from them and you'll be automatically qualified to join the EVGA, or you need to do some special forum postings and some other items, and then eventually you can graduate into the EVGA Elite membership. So there are two ways. One is based on your purchase, and the other one is no purchase necessary. So just want to point that out. So as you can see, with the EVGA hybrid for the Win 3 Ultra, the price is $250 higher than the Founders Edition, which comes in at $1,200. Today's review, I will go a little bit in depth to see whether or not it is worth the extra $250 on top to get the hybrid edition. And for those of you who do not know, the hybrid edition basically comes with a built-in AIO, a 240mm AIO, which you just need to mount into your system alongside with your GPU, and effectively you get a water-cooled GPU out of this. So it's quite nice. So let's go on to my own photos. As you can see, you can get all the photos and all the information from EVGA's website here directly, and the link is up here, so you can go over there directly. Alright, so let's get started. So here is how I received the box from EVGA. It comes into a standard cardboard box, and you have the graphics card that's inside. Then this is what it looks like when you open it up. Just a plain box. The only difference is this is a little bit taller because it has to store both the 240mm AIO and the graphics card itself. So it's the same width and length as other EVGA or graphics card boxes, except it's double height because it now carries an extra AIO. This is what it looks like, taking out that nice green outside casing. And here, as you can see, it's really well packaged. As you can see, there are basically foams everywhere. It's really nice and padded, and these are really dense hard foam, and the car is well protected against all kinds of shipping shenanigans and issues. So rest assured, the package is well packaged. All right, let me get on to the next item. And this is what it looks like. It comes with an anti-static bag, which is really nice. And just for those of you who do not know, every time you install a peripheral or anything that is sensitive electronics, you want to ground yourself. And how do you ground yourself? Just touch any part, any metal part of the or your case, and then you will be able to ground or transfer the built-up static electricity from your body to the PC case, and thus it's less likely for you to damage these sensitive electronics. And for ESD, especially those who lives in carpeted rooms, it's very easy to build up ESD. And now summer is coming. As you drag your feet across carpets, it's very easy to build up ESD without knowing it. And sometimes when you touch the doorknob or anything, then you get a sudden spark or shock, then you know that you have ESD built up. So in any case, make sure you touch any metal part of your PC case before you take out or install any sensitive PC parts or electronics. So that is a general rule of thumb when it comes to ESD safety. And once you take out the top part, this is what it looks like on the bottom, and this is just the AIO that's on the bottom. So it's stacked, the GPU on the top, and the 240 millimeter AIO is on the bottom. And this is what the fan looks like of the AIO. So you can see even the fans are well protected with some plastic wrappers around it. So it's hard, it prevents any sorts of foreign objects or damages to the fan blades, which are very easily damaged if something gets stuck in there. All right. And same thing, the GPU unit itself, it also comes with a really nice plastic wrapper around it. And so you want to make sure, as I said, on the wrapper itself, you want to remove it before use. Otherwise you'll get some funny thermal issues that because it's insulated and not well ventilated by the plastic wrappers. And I want to point out here on the bottom, some nice high-end cards nowadays always come with the PCIe, I will say, boot. It's basically a little rubber boot. They slide it over the PCIe connectors so that, again, during shipping you won't be scratching all the sensitive gold-plated fingers or connections. So just another nice touch for these high-end graphics cards. Okay, and this is what it looks like once you remove the plastic sheet. And this is what the back looks like. Now, one thing I do want to mention about the EVGA for the Win 3 Ultra is that you have this, it's a dual BIOS. So right here, as you can see, it has a switch for overclocking, which is OC, or normal, which is stock or not OC'd. That's the setting that's recommended by NVIDIA themselves. So with this being said, it's default on the OC switch. So for those of you who just want to have better performance, myself included, you don't have to do anything on the switch. It's automatically on OC as it's shipped. So I just want to point that out. And here there are some special connectors. You can connect additional ARGB controls to your graphics card directly, or other additional fans if necessary. I myself are not using these, but I do want to point that out, that these options are available from EVGA's card. So this is kind of nice, even though I don't use them myself. And finally, it comes with the kind of a instruction manual, and then in there's a pictorial recommended installation. So I just want to point out real quickly why you don't want to have your AIO radiators under the GPU. This is a poor configuration. because all the AIOs have a little bit of air bubbles in there, and so an air is lighter than water. So what happens is those little air bubbles gonna accumulate here, and if that happens on your graphics card, so you can imagine you don't have full immersion of the liquid touching the heatsink. So what you end up getting is you have pockets of air in there, which is not a great conductor of heat, and so it kind of defeats the purpose of AIO. So this is why you always want to make sure that your radiator from the AIO is above the item that you're trying to cool. In this case is our GPU. And one other thing is, obviously what's not mentioned in here is that they recommend you to mount on the top, but not all systems allows you to top mount. So the other option is you can also mount your 240 millimeter radiator on the front, and then you know, using the same tubing, you can do it this way. And as long as the radiator and the tubing is higher than the GPU itself, again, you won't run into those air bubble issues. So these two are really the recommended mounting option. Do not do this, obviously, that's bad because you have air bubbles. So let's move on. All right, so next I'm going to talk about some interesting things that I've discovered as I unbox the EVGA card. So you can see here, this is kind of nice. This is the addressable RGB or ARGB headers. The EVGA card came with two headers. One control, each header controls each of the fan that's on the 240 millimeter AIO. So that means you can control, if you want, the RGB, the addressable RGB that's on each of the fan individually. Now on the bottom here, you can see this is the male connector and this is the female connector. So if your motherboard is running short of ARGB connectors, or your RGB controller is running out of RGB connectors, you could potentially daisy chain the female on the second one to the male, and then in this case you just need to connect the single here to the motherboard, and then it will save you one RGB header. Or you can connect this to another RGB daisy chain if one exists, so then you won't be using up any additional ARGB headers if your motherboard is running short of them. So this is kind of nice from EVGA. And then the next thing I want to point out is the fan headers. So it comes with the standard 4-pin PWM fan headers, and the great thing about the fan headers, or the standard fan headers that they included here, is that you can potentially replace the fans with any 120 millimeter RGB fans, or fans of your choice. Non-RGB is fine as well, and you're not tied or stuck with the EVGA RGB fan that comes pre-installed as part of the AIO package. You can swap out the fans or at any time, and you don't have to worry about compatibility because it just uses very standard 4-pin headers. So this is another nice touch and nice thought from EVGA. So for those of you who want to have the ultimate customization and wants to control every component that goes into your system, now you have this opportunity and be able to replace the 120 millimeter RGB fans with any 120 millimeter RGB fan of your choice. So it's another nice touch from EVGA. So I try to point that out. Okay. Next, I want to talk about my own installation. So obviously this is a little bit different um, from user to user. So I just want to quickly go through my own installation. So as you can see, when I first started, I just put the card in just to see how it fits compared to the rest of the system. As you can see, in my current system, I have already installed the Arctic freezer, the Arctic freezer 240mm AIO on top, and this is mainly for my CPU. And then here, this is the EVGA 3080 Ti for the Win 3 Ultra. Then I will be using this, and then front mount my 240mm AIO here. So I cleared out my RGB fans here and I created a space to front mount it. And so this is what it looks like once you have the 240mm RGB front mounted. And this is what it looks like with it installed before I install the GPU. So you do want to install the radiator first because that's the more difficult installation of the two. Once you have that installed, then you install the GPU second. And then here, as you can see, I've installed the GPU into the PCIe 16 slot. And here I just want to point out, the tight tolerance that I'm seeing. This tight tolerance here, you just want to be aware, very aware of your total system length with the AIO included. Obviously, you want to make sure you have enough space. So as you can see here, I just have a few millimeters of space between the graphics card, the AIO, the front mounted AIO, and the fan. So just pay attention to that. Make sure you measure your case to make sure that you have sufficient length and space, and that your case is compatible with the Win 3 Ultra hybrid. Otherwise, you just purchase a really nice GPU, but now you have to rip everything out because your case won't fit. So just to point that out, it's super important to make sure that you have properly measured your GPU length and the case GPU compatibility to make sure that everything will fit really nicely. Otherwise, you may run into issues, and last thing you want to do is to rip everything out and redo everything again. So just want to point that out. And this is what it looks like once you have everything installed. It is a 3 8-pin card, PCIe card. So what that means is you want to make sure that your PSU has 3 PCIe 8-pin outputs. So definitely keep that in mind. Some power supplies may only come with 2. So you want to make sure that you find a PSU that is compatible and that has at least 3 PCIe 8-pin outputs so that you can properly power this card. All right. And again, this is just another view of it installed. So you can see here the RGB is working. It has a really nice RGB here and has a little RGB there. Give me a second here. My markup software is not working, so let me quickly change that to see. Sometimes you just have to restart again. So alright, so there's RGB there, there's RGB there, and obviously there's RGB on the 120mm RGB fan there. So you have 3 different control zones for the RGB, so it's quite nice. So just be aware of that. And the fans, I have it connected to my motherboard's RGB headers, so I can control it directly from the motherboard. The RGBs here and here can be controlled using EVGA's own software, or as I shown earlier, if you connected your RGB header to the card, then you can attach that to your motherboard's RGB, and then you can synchronize with your motherboard RGB. So that's another nice option that EVGA has provided, so that you don't have to worry about unsynchronized RGB lighting inside your case. If you wanted to have everything synchronized under one software, that there's an option you can connect using the optional ARGB header that was provided as part of this card, and you can then connect that to the motherboard ARGB header, and then you can have a synchronized RGB for the entire setup, the card and the 240mm AIO. So just want to point that out option. It's quite nice. All right, and this is what it looks like. In my case is a Zalman X3 case. As you can see here, there's a little reflection. I broke my foot last Sunday, and so now it's in the cast, so apologies for that reflection there. But as you can see, it's looking very nice. I have a number of RGBs, including my PSU. My power supply also has RGB, so it's a very pretty and nice looking setup at the end. Okay, so let's move on. Next, I want to talk about my system specs. So here I show you, this is my CPU. Currently I have a AMD Ryzen 9 5900X. I have it overclocked with precision boost overclock. And here's my motherboard. I'm using the Gigabyte X570 Aorus Elite Wi-Fi. It's quite a nice motherboard. I really enjoyed it. Actually, in fact, I have 2 systems built using this motherboard, and I don't have any issues with it whatsoever. And this is my DDR4. So I purchased 4 sticks of 8GB DDR4 memory from eBay. These are the infamous Samsung B dies. As you can see, I have it overclocked to 3400 megahertz, and I have quite a tight timing here, which is kind of nice. It's a CL14 15 15 15 31 48, so it's quite a great performance. It is run one to one memory clock to F clock to U clock, so everything is synchronized. This is the optimal setup for AMD system, so I want to just point that out. Okay, let me see. Clear. Next. And then finally, this is my GPU Z. So as you can see, this is an EVGA 3080 Ti, and one thing what I do want to point out, all the new EVGAs or all the new TIs comes with resizable bar already enabled, so that's really nice. So you don't have to do anything on the GPU itself. You don't have to update any firmwares or anything like that. You just want to make sure that your motherboard on the motherboard side has the latest BIOS with resizable bar support. And if you have it on both the motherboard and the GPU, then you will have resizable bar enabled. So I just want to point that out. All right, so let's move on. So just a quick forward. I'm not a professional YouTuber, nor do I have a setup that can consistently benchmark games in a very controlled fashion. I do understand how important a controlled environment is, but again, I'm just an end user, and this is just my own perspective and my own review from a pure user perspective, not a professional YouTuber perspective. So with that in mind, I just want to give you guys a heads up that I only benchmarked using few games and utilities that I have installed myself, and I try to control the environment as much as I can so that I can show some differences between stock and overclocked performance. So I just want to give that heads up, and with that, let me go on to the benchmarks. So the first game I have installed is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. As you can see here, this is the stock performance, and for stock performance, I get about 87 frames per second average. As you can see, everything is maxed out. So that's pretty good for this performance, out of box stock without any overclocking or anything else. And then this is the overclocked performance. So as you can see, the average went from 87 to 91, and that resulted in about a 5% increase. So not bad for overclocking. A 5% increase is pretty significant in my opinion, and so it's not something to laugh at. So I'm pretty happy with its overclocking performance. So that's really good. So let's move on. So the next game that I have installed and I play myself is Shadow of the Tomb Raider. It's a little bit older game, so it's not the latest spec, but I just want to show you what I got and what I use. So again, this is the stock performance, and as you can see, the average is 114 frames per second, and here are the settings. Basically, I max everything out. I have a 1440p monitor. I enable DLSS, full screen, DirectX 12, maximum, quality, everything. So this is how I play my games, and so this is not just a special setup that maybe a professional YouTuber will be using. This is how I use it myself when I game. So this is the performance I got. And then here's the average. Here's the overclocked performance. As you can see, it went from 114 to 120. Again, it's the same exact settings, and again, the performance boost is around 5%. So from Assassin's Creed Valhalla to Shadows of the Tomb Raider, the performance gain is fairly consistent across at least these two games, and I was able to get average about 5% performance out of everything. So I'm pretty happy with that. And then obviously everybody probably have 3D marks. So with 3D mark, I want to show what I got with the 3D mark result. So here's the 3D mark result. As you can see here, I want to pay attention to the GPU score. That's the only thing that is consistent. So GPU score is 21751. Oh, this is the wrong one. Pardon me. Let me grab this other one. Yeah. So this is my score. The score is with the RTX 3080 Ti. The score is 21585. So right here, this is the EVGA 3080, and my results publicly published. So it's available on the 3D Mark benchmark results. Just look for my name FTW3 here, and you should be able to find all of my results there. And then some of the users or YouTube users probably know that I recently had an in-depth review of a Zotac M-Core Hollow 3090, and so that was the card I had previously. I still have it, but now I use it for something else because one of the reasons I'm a little bit unsatisfied with my Zotac is that I had to do quite a bit of modification to cool its memory, its GDDR6 memory, because Zotac has taken some shortcuts, and due to their poor kind of thermomechanical design, they did not populate some of the thermal pads on the backside of a 3090, and 3090s are well known to have overheating, especially the GDDR6 on the backside. And so I had to do a lot of modifications, including loading video BIOS from another video card, and do all sorts of go through all sorts of hoops and jump through all through the hoops to get it to be a normal 3090. And so the end result is that yes, I've done a lot of modifications, and I was able to quote unquote bring the 3090 performance back to normal, but I'm still not 100% satisfied with what I had to go through on my Zotac 3090 card. So I decided to go to get another card, and I was fortunate enough to land the EVGA 3080 Ti. So with that being said, so I just want to show you here that the graphic score on the 3080 Ti overclocked to max is 21585, and the one that I shown you earlier by accident, here, this is the score for the Zotac. So this is the one that I had earlier. This is my Zotac 3090, and as you can see, its score is 21751. And so I did a little bit of calculation, and the difference between the overclocked 3080 Ti and the overclocked 3090 is less than 1%. To be exact, is 0.7%. So I can say that the 3080 Ti, as far as gaming performance is concerned, is basically the same as a 3090. I have overclocked my 3090 to maximum, using other video cards, BIOS, and crank, and using overclock curve optimizers, and these are the best scores I can get from my 3090. And I did the same with my 3080 EVGA 3080 Ti, and the score here is less than 1% difference between the 3080 and the 3090. So 3080 Ti is basically a 3090. Just want to throw it out there. And you probably heard this from many reviewers, professional YouTube reviewers already, and I can collaborate their findings. Right? And next, I'm going to talk about mining performance of the 3080 Ti. So let me just go ahead and close these windows. So one thing to note, all the 3080 Ti's basically come with the light the light hash rate. So by default, all the 3080 Ti's are light hash rate now. What that means is there's no normal hash rate 3080 Ti's that can be found anywhere. 3080 Ti's are built with light hash rate already built in. So with that being said, as you can see here, this is a well-tuned settings that I found after I play with, spend a lot of time on this trying to find the optimal settings. This is the best settings I found here. So with that being said, the best hash rate I can get out of my EVGA 3080 Ti is 65.69 megahash per second, or 66 megahash per second. So as you can see, this is quite a bit lower than the normal older 3080 non-Ti. The normal 3080 non-Ti, you can usually get up to 100 megahash per second. So this is about 2/3 of the performance of a 3080 non-Ti. So I just want to point that out. And another thing that you'll see here, this is my afterburner setting. You don't need any core clock, so I just slide that to the minimum, and I set my power limit to 50%. And I was fortunate enough to have really good memory lottery. I was able to overclock my GDDR6 to plus 1350, and I left my fan speed auto. So I want to talk about this a little bit. So in a traditional air-cooled GPU, you want to set the fan speed to something fairly high, maybe 90% or 80%, depends on how much heat output you get from your air-cooled GPU, because if you don't do that, you run into risk of thermal throttling or even damaging your card. On an AIO water-cooled system, you don't need to set the fan speed, because the AIO system, the whole point of water cooling is that it will sense and find the right fan speed or flow rate automatically. And so it's one less headache you have to worry about. So you can just set it to auto, and the AIO will take care of adjusting the fan speed per se for you automatically. But it's not really fan speed, it has to do with the flow rate and how much thermal capacity there is in the AIO system. So it's better not to mess with that. So just leave it auto and let the AIO's built-in capabilities to figure that out yourself. And as you can see here, after being mining for a while, the GPU junction temperature maximum is around 88 degrees, so that's pretty good. And one thing about the 3080 versus 3090 is that on a 3080 Ti or non-Ti, all the GDDR6 memories are on one side, and it's on the same side as the big heat sinks. So one benefit of that obviously is that your heatsink will carry all the heat away from the GPU and the GDDR6, so you don't have to worry about the backside. So the backside is just a normal metal plate, and because there are no hot components on the backside, unlike the 3090, which has half of the memory that's installed on the backside of the PCB, where the backplate becomes a critical component in thermal control of the 3090. On a 3080 and a 3080 Ti, that is not an issue. So you don't have to worry about the backplate, you don't have to worry about the thermal of the backplate. You just have to worry about whether or not your front heatsink can take away all the heat that's built up on the front. And as long as the heatsink can do that well, then you don't have to worry about anything else. So it makes cooling a lot easier with the 3080 and the 3080 Ti versus the 3090, which I had to jump through a lot of hoops to get my system to a stable state. Okay, and after I played with my systems a little bit, then I was a little bit unsatisfied with my system performance still, because I noticed my CPU temperature has gone up, even though I now have two AIO systems, one for the CPU and one for the GPU, and CPU was top mounted and GPU was front mounted. Then I decided to experiment a little bit, and I want to swap the two AIO systems. And so here I'll show you the photos. So here, with this, the AIO swapped, as you can see now, I have the GPU AIO on the top and the CPU AIO on the front. And I noticed this configuration was better than my previous configuration. My CPU temperature actually dropped 10 degrees, and the reason for the CPU temperature change being so drastic is that even though the GPU AIO was mounted to the front, there's still some heat that's built up here from the back plate a little bit, and the heat rises up. And when I have my CPU AIO on here on the top, what ended up happening is that it then started to heat up the CPU's AIO, which causes the CPU temperature to go up a little bit. So now with the CPU mounted to the front, I was able to draw the cool airs directly from the front here, and with the fresh cool air, it's no longer heated up by the GPU. The CPU went down about 10 degrees C. Now, of course, you may think that, well, the heat inside the case will still heat up the AIO of the GPU, so that means the GPU is going to be a little bit warmer. And that's my surprise, is that no, actually the GPU temperature remained the same whether it's front mounted or top mounted, which means that the EVGA AIO system is actually pretty good, and that it was able to handle the additional heat that is within the case, and it was then able to radiate it out without increasing the GPU temperature, or at least not to any significant number that I can be aware of. So I just want to point that out and let you guys know that if you have two AIO systems, I recommend the CPU AIO is front mounted and the GPU AIO top mounted. Then in this case, you can get a lower CPU temperature. At least in my case particular, and no pun intended, in my case in particular, this is the optimal configuration. So, you know, I just try that out, and I just discovered this by accident, and I was pretty happy with this. And again, this is the close-up picture of the EVGA 240mm AIO, which is quite nice. And you know, as you see, here's the RGB rings. It's pretty beautiful, and as you can see here, it's pretty tight, right? The intake and outlet is for the GPU AIO is located there, and the input and outtake of the CPU AIO is here. So it's a little bit tight squeeze and almost touch the fan, so you got to be careful there. Is, you know, whenever you have fans, you don't want to have anything that stick out that may go into the fan. But luckily, the tube is formed such a way that it never actually touches the fan. It just looks very close, but it doesn't actually touch the fan. So I was fortunate there. And then Yeah, and then one other thing I want to point out, and again, it's just a very important note. As you can see here, the with when I swapped the CPU AIO to the front, my as you notice that my CPU AIO is a little bit thicker than the GPU AIO, and so the little gap that I had when I installed my GPU has now all disappeared. And I was worried that again the CPU will be blocking or be disrupting the fan operation, but luckily I still had about 1 millimeter of clearance there. So I just want to point that out. Make sure you measure your AIO and your GPU length together so that when you look up your case compatibility, that it is compatible and you will not run into any issue. Again, I was lucky this time, and it just worked out. So the AIO fan worked, and I did not have any fan obstructions or clearance issue, but it's very, very tight. Just want to point that out, and I took a photo of this. All right, and this is what it looks like, the final system with now the GPU AIO on the top and the CPU AIO on the front. And I like red color, so I just set all my RGB to static red, so it has a little nice kind of reddish look. It's kind of cool. I like it. And then last thing is EVGA sent me a random t-shirt for being a part of their elite membership. And so I just want to point that out, that it is definitely worth it to join the elite membership program if you can. And it's like I said, very easy. If you had purchased any item from EVGA directly before, you automatically qualify to be part of the elite membership program. If you did not purchase anything from EVGA, you may need to post a few things on their forums or post some things on their Twitters, and then once you have sufficient posts, then you can also be qualified for the elite membership. And again, I was fortunate enough to be in the elite program at the right time, and I was able to win or be lucky to be chosen very quickly from their queuing system, and I was able to purchase my 3080 Ti. So the question is, was it worth it? For me, the EVGA 3080 Ti for the Win 3 Ultra is definitely worth it compared to my air-cooled Zotac M Hollow 3090. The reason being is that I do mine Ethereum on the side, and when I do that, my 3090 will heat up and will have very loud fans because I had to keep the GDDR6 memory cool. And I live in SoCal. As you know, SoCal has lots of sun and gets pretty hot during the summertime. And so with all that heat and noise in my room, it just becomes a little bit unbearable. Then again, I was fortunate enough to be in the queue, and I was fortunate enough to be chosen from the queue. And so now with the hyper system, with the AIO system, my room temperature has gone down dramatically, and the room has become really quiet because the AIO system is very, very quiet. One of the benefits of water cooling, and that as I shown you, that I did not suffer any performance loss going from 3090 to a 3080 Ti. So for me, this is definitely worth the trade. Now, of course, my Ethereum mining performance has gone down, but I'm not, giving away my 3090. So my 3090 is going into another system, and that it will then be mining a full Ethereum hash rate at 122 megahash per second. So with that, I now add another 65 megahash per second on top. So not bad. Although, from a economic perspective, it's going to take me months to recuperate some of the cost that I've sunk in for buying these GPUs. But with the Ethereum price being still pretty high, hopefully in a few months I can recuperate most of the cost, or and with that I should be able to break even, hopefully, with some of the money that I spend on this. So it's, once again, all the equipment and all the GPUs I bought myself with my own money, so none of this is sponsored by anybody. Just want to point that out. So I hope you enjoyed my really long, in-depth EVGA 3080 Ti for the Win 3 Ultra. And if you like it, I guess you can subscribe to me. I'm maybe trying to build up a little bit of subscribers and see if I can do something on the side. If not, just give it a like, and I'll be happy. And if I got other systems or other electronics hardware, and if I have time, I will perform some in-depth review again. All right, see you guys next time. Bye.